In the passage we just heard, the expert in the law wants to trap Jesus, wants to catch him. I'm not sure he cares about the answer, but he asks an important question anyway. What is the greatest commandment? That was a real question that lots of people had and discussed in Jesus' day. All of the rabbis had their own answer. Probably this guy asking the question already had an answer in mind. What is the greatest commandment? What's the best thing I can do? But that's not why this guy is asking. He's trying to trick Jesus. But not only is Jesus not going to be tricked, he's actually going to use this as a teaching opportunity. He turns the whole situation on its head. He's put on the spot. The teacher wants to know if he believes the right things, and of course Jesus does. And more important, he's going to tell us to do the right things. Listen again to Jesus' answer. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments, he said. So, of course, love is the right answer to the question, but Jesus takes it a step further and says, love is not just the right thing to believe in, it's the right thing to do. The Apostle Paul would say, if I could speak all the languages on earth and of angels, but if I didn't love others, I would just be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I had the gift of prophecy, Paul says, if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had so much faith that I could move mountains, but didn't love others, I would be nothing. Jesus says the greatest commandment, the highest calling in life is to love. It's to love. It says, love God with everything you've got, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says, love your neighbor. If you love God, you will love the one that God has made. Love your neighbor as much as you love yourself, as much as you love life. Look out for them. So Jesus is basically saying, if we could boil it down, he's saying the life purpose of every single one of us can be boiled down to 4 words. Love God, love others. Love God, love others. Raises the question, what is love? You have heard me sing. You've heard me play guitar. I've quoted cheesy top 40 hits from the early 1990s to you, but I don't believe that as of yet you've heard me rap. And there's a very good reason for that. Actually, there's a lot of good reasons for that. But this morning, I hope you'll permit me this exception. I cannot resist because the Christian hip-hop group DC Talk from way back just puts it so well when talking about love. The lead rapper in this group decides he's trying to figure out what love is, so he turns to his dictionary and he says, so I moved to the L's, quick, fast, in a hurry. I threw on my specs, thought my vision was blurry. I looked again, but to my dismay, it was black and white with no room for gray. You see, a big V stood beyond my word, and that's when it hit me. Pow! Love is a verb. I'll consider an encore performance after the service. Love is a verb. It's so much more than just a feeling or an emotional state that we experience. Love is an action word. It's something that you do. When a couple makes marriage vows to each other, they're making a commitment. They're promising to choose one another day in and day out. And whether you're married or not, a healthy marriage, in my opinion, is one that is rooted in the soil of the church, and it happens in church community. And at a church wedding, the whole body, the single folks and the married folks alike, are gathered together, and they're saying, we too will help you love each other. We are committed to you, the couple, and that means that we will act to support you and lift you up when you fall down. And even when we don't feel like it, we're committed to you too. The standard wedding vows, they define love in terms of commitment, not just the feeling. Action, not just emotion. It says, will you love him? Will you comfort him? Will you honor and keep him in sickness and in health? And forsaking all others, that's a choice. Forsaking all others. Will you be faithful to him as long as you both shall live? And will you love her, comfort her, honor her, keep her in sickness and in health? And forsaking all others, that's an action word. Will you be faithful to her as long as you both shall live? Usually these vows are really easy to say yes to in the midst of wedding day joy. But it gets harder as the marriage goes on. And I think that's also true about our relationship with Jesus. We have mountaintop moments, especially when we first say yes to Jesus. It's like wedding day joy. But that commitment gets harder in our walk with Jesus as life goes on. We know that love is, as Eugene Peterson says, a long obedience in the same direction. Love is more than just how we feel toward God and others. It has to do with the commitment that we've made. And so we make that commitment. When we say we love God, that means we're giving God our strength. We're giving God the way that we think. We're loving God with our speech, which sometimes means not saying the first thing that might come out of my mouth or that I might think to say. Loving God means acting on it. It means deciding to love God, making decisions in life that honor God. Loving God with our time and with our bodies and our whole lives. It's a choice. At the same time, may love never become just a cold, rational duty. That would be really sad if it was just all duty. May there also be a spark in our hearts when we think about God and when we think about our neighbor. May our love for God delight us. May our love for our neighbor and for others bring us joy and happiness as we see the other person for who they really are. One pastor was writing about this passage, and he was being a little bit snarky about the kind of Christian worship music that says, I am so in love with you, Jesus. Some people don't like the lovey-dovey stuff. We've got all types here, and we honor that. But this pastor was struggling with this, the I am in love with you, Jesus kind of music. And he was writing about this passage and trying to find his way. And then all of a sudden, he remembered this 12th century German rabbi. And this rabbi said, understand, love God as a command to love God with even more intensity than a couple making love for the first time after being separated for many years. I'm sorry, maybe you should have given a content warning on that one. And I'm not sure that imagery really works for me personally, to be honest with you. But you would not have to spend much time with the Christian mystics. Excuse me, you would not have to spend much time with the Christian mystics to come across this kind of passionate imagery to describe our love of God. And whether that bride of Christ metaphor works for you or not, whether that connects with you or not, the point is this: loving God is a commitment and it's a passion. It's a passion. It is a joy to love God and to be loved by God. The Westminster Shorter Catechism gets at this when it says the chief end of man, the chief end of humanity is to love God and, does anyone know how that finishes? Enjoy him forever. Love God and enjoy him forever. So may our love of God and others be not just a commitment, but also a joy, something that we truly enjoy. So if you ever want to know, what should I do? What is God's will? You can always do at least this: love God with everything you've got, and love your neighbor as yourself. Those two, Jesus says, are front and center for every believer. And you know that even if you've read the Bible all the way through, it does not explicitly answer every single ethical question about life. It does not give specific word-for-word guidance about every decision you're ever going to make. But we can run even the most challenging situations through these two commandments as like they're glasses that we put on. Love God is one lens, love your neighbor is the other. You look through those glasses and ask, okay, now how do I do this in this situation? I really enjoyed hearing from so many of you the first 2 Sundays of this month. We had these sessions after church where we were looking for God in every moment and asking, where has God been in our church's past? Where is God right now? Where is God calling us in the future? And I heard these 2 commands come up as major themes in who we are. We are a church who seriously loves God, or at least with God's help, we try to seriously love God. And we are a church who loves each other very much. And we love our community. And we don't always get that perfect. We know that. And we have room to grow. We're humans. But I heard us say in those sessions how important that is, that love of God and that care for each other. This is a massive value for this church, to love God and to love others, as it should be. It's a huge part of who we've been and who we want to keep being with God's help. This is what we're here for, friends. It's love. Love God, love others. So I especially wanted us reflecting on this passage and these 2 great commands here on the Sunday before our annual meeting as we look ahead to a coming year. When we think about where we're going as a church, there are a million things that we could be doing as a church. And even if we say, for example, as we did, let's become more intergenerational, huge part of our shared vision, there's like 100 ways to do that. So what do we do? Where do we focus? Well, we're still figuring that out, but here's what we know. We know that we can love God and we can love others. That's our highest calling, to love God with everything we've got, to love our neighbors as ourselves. So pray for God to open opportunities to you to just talk to people and love them with the love of Jesus. Love them with your actions, love them with your words, love them with your hospitality, love them with your ears just by listening to them. I think after a couple sessions like the ones we had in early June, we could become overwhelmed with all the possibilities of what's next for us as a church. There's so much we want to do. It's all great stuff. So how do we do it all? Well, I think this passage actually has a lot to say about that. Some context here, and we may not be aware of this now, but everybody in Jesus' day knew that when he says 2 great commandments, that was 2 out of 613 commandments that came in the first 5 books of the Old Testament. 613 commands. That's a lot to keep straight. And even now we've got 27 books in the New Testament, 39 books in the Old Testament. We've got the 9 fruits of the Spirit, the 10 commandments, hundreds of verses on how to be the church and community. Where do you even start? Jesus boils it down to 4 words. 4 words that I think are essential for our church right now as we look ahead to the future. Love God, love others. Love God, love others. Love God with every ounce of your being, with your decisions, with your passion. Love your neighbor as yourself as much as you can muster to love another person. And yeah, all of God's commands matter. All of the words of God are important. And everything that God has called us to do, we want to do. But that can feel overwhelming sometimes. And I think Jesus knew that when he answered this question. So maybe, just maybe by God's grace, we can do at least these 2 things well. Love God, love others. Love God, love others. And then we pray that with God's help, everything else will follow. Let's pray. God, I thank you for, you are a brilliant, incarnated human as Jesus, and yet so simple. It's just so profound and so simple. 4 words: love God, love others. And I thank you for that, God. I thank you for, as much as you knew, and you knew the 613 commandments by heart and could have quoted any one of them, you just made it a little bit easier for us to wrap our heads around. But these are the 2 great commandments, the highest calling in our life: to love you with everything we have and to love our neighbors as ourselves. And we want to do that, God. Please see that desire and bless it and use it and strengthen us and give us more and more of your love. so that we can love you back and that we can love others well. God, I pray that wherever you lead us as a church in these coming months and years, God, that we would be faithful in choosing to love you. Even, God, we pray for more passion. God, it's not just about feeling, but we want to have the feelings too. To feel that joy and that happiness around being with you. So give us passion in our love for you. Give us commitment. Help us to love our neighbors well too. A world that is so in need of love. So God, we thank you. Give us more of your love, we pray, and bless us the rest of this day. In Jesus' name.